Hello, friends, and welcome back to your weekly Linux talk show. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
Ich heiße Brent.
Hello, gentlemen. Yes, Brent is still in Berlin. Coming up on the show today, we're going to get the inside scoop from the Nextcloud offices. What do you learn if you camp out for a week in the Nextcloud office when they have a brand new release? Well, something special is brewing in Berlin, and we'll get into that. Plus, we'll round out the show with some great boosts, some picks, and a lot more. So before we get into any of that, I want to say good morning to our friends over at Tailscale. Tailscale is a mesh VPN protected by WireGuard. That's right, WireGuard, the best in the VPN business. It'll build a mesh network in minutes, regardless of your device, regardless of OS. Go try it out. It's going to change your networking game. I no longer have any inbound firewall ports on any network that I manage, and I love it. Try it out at tailscale.com for free for up to 20 devices. And if you get it, if you get a chance, tell them Linux Unplugged sent you. Because how else would they know? So maybe let them know that Linux Unplugged sent you at tailscale.com. And before we get into the rest of the show, we got to say time-appropriate greetings to our mumble room. Hello, Virtual Lug. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, guys.
Hello, Wes, and hello, Brent.
Hello. It is so nice to have you joining us from all around the world as we travel around this week. Well, we don't travel. Wes and I sit here in the studio and watch Brent travel.
But we're trying really hard to live through Brent.
Yeah.
He's told us to, give him a little alone time. But
Is this vicarious podcasting? Is that what we're doing right now?
It's at least vicarious JB traveling, I think.
Yeah.
we should have got him like a little lapel mic,
Right.
so he could be streaming to us, and then we could just come check in on him.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Well, when we're big time, we'll have like a camera crew following Brent around on his worldwide travels.
Well, I'm actually quite into that. Bring it on.
Speaking of worldwide travels, you are in Berlin again. You are in the Nextcloud office for week number 2.
I think I'm making friends because I actually have the co-founder's keys in my pocket, and that's how I got in today. So things are going well here.
You're such a charmer. You really are such a charmer. So I imagine you've gotten yourself into all kinds of adventures, and paint us a picture. I'm curious to know what you've gotten yourself into. Besides, we'll get into the Nextcloud stuff and the secrets you've learned, but outside of that, what have you gotten yourself into?
Yeah, it's been a really wild week. I can't believe it's only been a week since I arrived, but it's really my adventure yesterday that really I think is worth highlighting. Listener Tomasz, I think I got that right. Listener Tomasz, who's a triathloner, and that'll come in a little bit.
Oh boy.
I met him for dinner the other night. He couldn't make the meetup that we had here on Friday, and so we did dinner the night before, and we basically shut down the local brew pub that we were at. We had a great time. We were up probably way too late, and it was great. And he offered to take me on an adventure. And I thought,
wait, so tell me about the brew pub. What did you eat? What did you drink?
Well, okay. What did I drink was cider. But, you go to a brew pub, you get cider. It's kind of an afterthought. Well, this place, these are like some of the best ciders I've ever had. One of them had cardamom mixed in there. They're just fabulous. So if you're going to come to town, I think cider is a thing you need to try, which nobody told me that was on the list, but it really made me quite pleased because that's my drink of choice.
And how was the food?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I broke a few rules you'll probably like. And
that does mean it's a special trip.
Yeah, it's a good place when Brent's breaking the rules.
Yeah, this was the kind of place that's a bit more local than every other food place I've been to. So the language barrier was a little higher, which was actually a great experience. You just smile lots and they help you out. But Tomasz, I said, what would you order if, you're sitting here in town? I mean, you always get something great. And he got me the goulash, which we were able to make like gluten-free and such for the things I really need. But, it was basically a plate of meat, which is...
How do you make goulash gluten-free?
Well, it was a fancy one. It came with like these steamed buns and things. So anyways.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a great place. And
I feel like we should have gotten more pictures.
I'm beginning to suspect that as well.
Okay. That's fine. You're eating my dinner out there, but that's fine. It's fine.
So it was a lovely experience.
Yeah. And what did you guys talk about? What did you get into? Did you geek out on any particular topic?
Well, I think considering we were there for like 3.5 hours, we geeked out about all sorts of topics. But really what I learned the most was a ton of like culture in Berlin. Everything from like every single neighborhood has a feel to it and a history and like a typical crowd of people that live there. And not everyone's German, of course. It's a multicultural place. And so just tons of things, tons and tons and tons of context.
Did you get a sense of the Linux community at all? Like how popular Linux was, or if there was industry that uses Linux? Did you get any sense of that?
Well, as you might imagine, it's far more prevalent here than it is in North America. You know, I'm used to being the only person in the room who even knows the word Linux. And it seems like out here, it's at least the principles of being a little bit more open and are just far more prevalent, especially in government and stuff like that. So I think I might want to move here, guys.
I know. I can tell you really like it.
Well, that means we could visit him.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's got to be some way to make that a business expense, I imagine. You know, going to see our co-host. You get this great dinner. You discuss the local flavor, and does it end there, or did you end up continuing on?
Well, by the end of the night, I got an invitation to do a big cycling trip, and then sort of a cold dive into a local lake.
What?
See, this is why he was too busy to investigate Linux usage.
And this is why we weren't getting pictures.
That's right.
Yeah, he's taking cold dips. What?
Yeah, I thought I can't say no to this, right? And so Tomasz was kind enough to repair a bicycle for me, which was actually his wife's bicycle that was in parts apparently when he made this offer. And so he repaired the bicycle and invited me into his home, which was lovely. And I got to meet his family, who were lovely. And then he gave me a ton of clothing. It turns out, if you're going to be pretty serious with cycling, especially because it was pouring rain when we decided to do this, you need like some clothing. So Tomasz and I are the same size, which is thank goodness. And we headed out on the road, and we did like in total a 40-kilometer cycling tour of mostly
goodness.
Like the eastern part of Berlin, which was amazing. And also, you know, you're cycling with traffic and all of that. I don't know if you boys have ever done this, but it's an experience, you know. Luckily,
I'm usually the traffic.
You are the traffic. Luckily, not my first time on a bicycle. So, and I, you know how it started. I said, well, one of my favorite ways to see a new city is to cycle, and
yeah,
I don't know how to do that, and that's how this all came to be. But halfway, you know, at our destination, there was a giant lake, and Tomasz is a triathloner and wanted to start his swimming practice, you know, in the cold, and so this lake.
Wow.
Turns out it was 10 degrees Celsius, which is 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's a big shock. That's about half the difference of your body temperature.
And we had another fellow listener who was supposed to join us and bring an extra wetsuit for me. But
wait, another listener was going to join you to do this craziness?
It's true, but they ended up not being able to join. And so I didn't actually have a wetsuit.
But tell me you just stripped down naked and just jumped in.
I sure did.
You did?
As a Canadian, you know, you got to do the right
thing. He's prepared for this, born for it.
Apparently,
good point, Brent.
Apparently in Germany, just swimming kind of mostly nude is not a problem at all. So,
okay.
When in Berlin.
Well, when a Canadian is in Rome, right? I guess. This is incredible. And I'm picturing myself, if I'd gone on this trip, I would not be doing this.
You just got to follow Brent.
Yeah, right. I realize now. So this is quite the experience so far, and such an incredible commentary on how amazing the community is. Right? Like, yeah. This was like not announced. It wasn't like you planned this a year ahead of time. And, you and Tomasz was like, we're going to figure this out. And you come over here. No, this was a really kind of the last minute kind of planning sort of situation. And yet it really sounds like you got a first class kind of treatment.
I have to say the first class treatment has happened this entire week, from Nextcloud taking me in and inviting me to check out what they're, releasing this week, which is amazing, and we'll get into that very shortly. But also just every single listener I've met, which has been a lot of them. This was like super last minute, me coming here, and I organized a JB meetup, which happened on Friday, which was incredible. And far more people showed up than I even expected. We had something like 15 to 17 people like come in and out, and we hosted it here at the Nextcloud office, which was amazing. And as you might imagine, we again just like hung out all evening from like, I think it was from like 6 p.m. till 1 o'clock in the morning, just chatting about all sorts of stuff and playing ping pong, and just like, it was amazing. So
Did a lot of them speak English? How was that?
everyone spoke English. Yeah. I think the tech industry here, from what I'm gathering, is extremely multicultural. People move here to work here, and English is sort of the common language that's spoken. And so I haven't really had an issue at all. I've been trying to pick up a little German here and there, but it's really not been a necessity. Mostly.
How much have you picked up?
An embarrassingly small amount.
Okay.
Mostly because either the folks speak English, which is helpful, or I have a trusty listener with me who is willing to translate. So,
Well, that's great.
There's no accounting for hospitality.
Yeah. I mean, really, that speaks to how hospitable folks have been, really, that you haven't had to figure a whole bunch out.
it's been really lovely. So I think this coming Tuesday in office hours, we'll talk more about the meetup and the people I met there, and some little audio clips from that. Had a great time, and you boys were very much missed. You would have absolutely loved it.
Very jealous. Very jealous. I'm looking forward to hearing how that went, because I would love to have been there for the meetup. Well, let's discuss why you were actually there, because Nextcloud had quite a bit to announce. And, sometimes we get kind of a heads up about stuff before it comes out. And we got a heads up about this one in a new way. We were told, like, hey, something's coming, and we're really proud of it, and we'd like to have you guys cover it, because we think this is going to be a big deal, because we're really focusing on a couple of areas that you guys talk a lot about: sovereignty and ethical AI, and implementing open source AI. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. See where this goes. And we ended up kind of chatting more and just kind of getting a little teeny tiny glimpse into what was coming up. And I was like, okay, all right, this sounds like it's worth us figuring out a way to cover. We were blown away by the announcement when it came out. Wes and I both took a look at it. Wes, being the maniac that he is, got a really early build installed in production on our Jupiter Broadcasting Nextcloud server.
Who, me?
before it was ready.
I shared a link with Yos here, who's the co-founder, and he was like, oh, now I can check which version you guys run. And he's like, oh, you're running the latest version. Like, why are you doing that? That seems like very bold. I can't believe you're doing that in production. Why are you doing that this way?
I mean, the announcement said it was ready to go. We were ready to go too.
You know what, Yos? Tell me you don't listen to the show without telling me you don't listen to the show.
Well, then his immediate reaction after saying that was, oh, wait, that's how you guys do it, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. And we really wanted to get some hands-on with it so we could talk about it in Linux Action News, and you could talk about it today, because we couldn't go to Berlin, but we wanted to try to see what they were doing here. So they've announced Nextcloud Hub 4. And Nextcloud Hub 4 is kind of a continuation of a collection of apps that you can install on top of an existing Nextcloud instance that turn it into a collaborative suite that's competitive with, say, Office 365 or the Google stuff. And the idea being that you could host it yourself on premises, you could host it on Linode, you could host it on some sort of service provider that does hosted Nextcloud, and you get like a set of features with these hub releases. And it's a collection of apps that you could go into the app section and install, the app store, if you will, and just install all of these apps that comprise of the hub experience. And starting in Hub 4, not to sound cliche, but they're deeply integrating a lot of the open source technologies around AI that you've been hearing about recently. ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, Whisper Transcription, among others. And they are creating, along with that, an ethical AI rating system that they will be posting on their website how and what and when things transmit information to third parties. And so you can make a judgment call on which ones you're comfortable with, like something like Whisper, for example, which can run entirely local and do transcription of voice notes and audio files and video files, versus something like ChatGPT, which inevitably has to send information offsite to OpenAI. And they make it really clear on when those lines are crossed. And that's where they're coming up with this ethical AI rating system.
You know, I'd seen over on Reddit some folks kind of asking like, are things like LibreOffice and various open source productivity software are they going to still be relevant when Office 365 has all of these smart, crazy AI tools built in that maybe we just can't match? And so it's interesting to see Nextcloud trying to approach that problem, but clearly, thinking like, how do we do this in a way where you can use those tools, but you have some more insight and control over like when you use them and which ones you use, rather than it just being a transparent feature that appears and you have no control over where that data.
And a lot clearer lines.
Right.
Like this is going to go off site and be processed by a third party, but you get these benefits. And I know that ethical AI and trying to give users that clear information was a big thing that you talked about with the Nextcloud stuff. Like that's something they clearly focused a lot. They put a lot of energy and focus into for this release.
Yeah, I was really worried when I first heard about integrating AI because I thought, oh no, this is, a company that I've kind of respected for a long time. I've loved their stuff for about 5 years now. And they're going down the path of a thing that I, feel like might eat away at their ideals.
They're chasing a trend. You could the most negative interpretation is they're trend chasing.
Yeah, and that really worried me. And this was before I had the chance to be here and to chat with people quite a lot about the thoughtfulness that went into integrating all of this. And what I have come to appreciate is that they think just like we do. They're like, well, there are some implications here, but that technology is also really fascinating. And so how do we do this in a way that is transparent and also in a way that's optional? You can disable some of these functions as an administrator if you'd like. And so I think that's actually amazingly powerful and has been really neat to see how that was integrated and just how it can be customized, really.
And controlled by the user. And I think the way to think about this is these features of ChatGPT where it can generate text for you, or Stable Diffusion where it can generate images for you, or Whisper where it can transcribe audio and video for you. Some of this is open source stuff that they can bundle into products. And over the rest of this year, you're going to see different vendors from Nextcloud to Apple announce different layers of integration with this stuff, right? And some of it's going to be really worthless. It's going to be like Clippy type crap. And some of it's going to be thoughtful and useful. And a little example that we did on the pre-show here was we generated a note in Nextcloud. Then now in Nextcloud Hub 4, they have this thing called the Smart Picker. And you hit the slash key in Nextcloud, and it brings up kind of like a launcher. Sort of looks like a launcher, maybe like ULauncher or Spotify. And in there, you can access some of the AI features. And so I had a brand new note, and I wanted to make a note about doing a car oil change. So I hit the slash button after I created the new note. I hit the slash button, and I brought up the ChatGPT prompt right there in the launcher. And I said, give me the basic steps for an oil change. And it spit out a 9-step process for doing an oil change, which then I could modify in that note. And the other way I've used this is in creating sort of like references for myself. Like, when was this thing created? Like that, maybe something about like a car part or something like that. Or give me the information when this project launched XYZ, like Firefox and Manifest version 3 extensions. And it can give me the dates and the numbers, and I can add that to the note in line while I'm making the note. It's not like kind of like a gimmick. It's kind of like a helper. It's built in that can add information to an existing project that you're working on. And an example that I saw somebody doing in a video was they went into the Nextcloud Office document creator, and they wanted to create a letter of resignation. And so they asked the ChatGPT to give them a basic letter of resignation, which they then went and tweaked. And they had it ready to go.
Yeah, get the skeleton of it, kind of the structure of it. What's a standard one look like? And then, fill in your particulars.
So that kind of stuff is actually useful. But you want to know what you're giving up when you do that.
But that's not the only thing that they've released in Nextcloud Hub 4. The list is like massive. the developers, and the open source community, I don't know how they've come out with so many features. In like what Nextcloud Hub 3 came out in October or something.
Felt like yesterday, but sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I, as a very short list of things that I'm personally excited about, the versioning system got a bunch of upgrades. So it was like a basic versioning system previously, and now you're able to like name versions, and those will be kept forever. And you're able to describe how often you want to keep versions, like in an automated fashion. I think that's pretty great. There's also an end-to-end encrypted file drop, which it's complex. You also went into details with me about it for quite some time, and it is complex. It's a hard thing to do, and I think they've done it right. So that's worth looking at as well. And there's a whole bunch of other like groupware upgrades for, if you're running a larger business, things like shared mailboxes, which is a pretty neat feature. Other things like SMIME support and the feature list just goes on and on and on and on. So I think worth having a look at that.
Yeah. They seem to me to be going directly after the Office 365 and the Google Workspace crap, whatever it is. And they're bringing in, now with their like the talk stuff and the call stuff, they're bringing in the transcription capabilities with Whisper. That's nice. I think they're ahead of the pack here. It's funny. I have to remind myself as a business that Nextcloud has all of this stuff available to me, because it's sort of just kind of default that there's momentum around using Google Docs and Google Sheets and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to remind myself that, oh, wait, no, we have it on the Nextcloud server.
And it's kind of powerful when it already has access to a bunch of other
Yeah.
stuff that that we're storing on there.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I mean, if they're kind of Nextcloud's outreach for developers is successful and we see more apps, they will also have access to these various integrations that are getting added as part of this AI work. So
yeah, one of the other things that I thought was pretty nice was that integration with the deck, which is their like Kanban project system, where you could be in a chat environment and you can kind of invoke the embedding of a deck project file, stuff like that. If you're a small team, this seems like a no-brainer. Why would you go pay money for some hosted Office solution when you could just use Nextcloud? And if you're a big team, there's some hosted solutions out there that would probably be pretty useful. I kind of like deep down inside, I really want to see like Nextcloud Hub 5, the performance release, where they really focus in and just make everything screaming fast. However, I am reminded that sometimes that is also just on us. Like, you did some maintenance that did improve the performance of our Nextcloud instance, and I need to do some maintenance on my personal Nextcloud server too. I need to move from SQLite to something like, MariaDB or Postgres or something like that. But you also kind of shored up the JB instance, which we've been using for several years. What did you do to make our system run even just a little bit faster?
Oh,
just basics.
Just sort of normal database maintenance. So we just vacuumed, analyzed, and reindexed.
That's all it really takes. It's just some of the basics sometimes. And it turns out performance improves. And that's all we really have to do. And I can't really blame Nextcloud for that. But I would love to see Hub 5, the performance turbocharged edition, right? Where they really just focus on making that thing fast. Because sometimes you want to pull something up. You're in the middle of a meeting. You're waiting for the dashboard to load and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, I just want to get to this file so fast. That's all I want. If they could come up with some way to make that quicker and more accessible, I'd love that.
Chris, I know they did improve a lot of performance in at least the talk application, like by orders of magnitude, it sounds like. So maybe they're going through and fulfilling your wish, and maybe you'll see those speed improvements throughout.
Linode.com/unplugged. Go there to get $100 in 60-day credit on a new account, and it's a great way to support the show while you are checking out fast, reliable cloud hosting that we have been using personally for years. For my personal stuff and my business stuff, I run it at Linode. It's reliable, it's fast, and they have the best support in the business. Our new website, we deployed it immediately on Linode. It is the service, it is the performance, it's also the tooling, and to be honest with you, it's the reliability, the support, like all of it coming together. It's not just one thing I can say, oh, Linode does X, Y, Z really great, because Linode's been around for nearly 19 years, surviving on the merits of the product, looking at what they had to do to survive in a marketplace that was dominated by competitors that could just get injected by millions of VC and never have to earn a profit for 10 years, right? That just isn't how Linode operated for the last 19 years. They had to survive on the merit of the product, and so they developed the best performance. They deployed 11 data centers around the world for you to choose from. They have great features like S3 compatible object storage, easy to understand backups, a cloud firewall that stops the traffic from ever even hitting your rig, Kubernetes and Terraform and Ansible support if you want to snap it into an existing infrastructure management. It's really nice. And a bunch of one-click deployment apps to get up and going quick. I was just looking and they've updated a bunch of database one-click deployments that are in cluster mode. So like if you want to play around with Redis or Mongo or Postgres and others in a clustered setup, they've got one-click deployments now for clustered database setups. Of course, they also have managed database, they have bare metal systems, and they're deploying another dozen data centers this year. Linode just keeps turning up past 11. So go try it, get the $100, and support the show. It's a great chance to build something, to learn an open source project that you've been wanting to try, to demo something, or set something up for yourself, your family, or your business. And that $100 means you can really try it, you can really kick the tires, and you can support the show. So you go to linode.com/unplugged. You get that $100 for 60 days on that new account, and you support the show. It's easy. It's linode.com/unplugged.
Now, one of the highlights of this week, other than getting to hang out in the office here at Nextcloud and just getting to chat with everyone who was working here throughout the week, was their big Hub 4 release event. And this was an impressive presentation. They invited a whole bunch of local media and I guess a few of us as well. There was me and Brandon from Tech Hut, who they brought out as well from overseas. And the Nextcloud team put on a big show. They had an amazing event where a bunch of the team went on stage and described their sort of favorite feature or the features they worked on in this newest release. I got to drive there with Frank and Maria through the city of Berlin and got a personal tour along the way. And that means I got there a little early. Things are just buzzing. I'm here early, arrived with Frank earlier, and things are just getting set up. And there is an energy here that is contagious. People are excited. They're also nervous about just announcing what is one of the biggest releases for Nextcloud. And I have had a sneak peek at what's going to be released here today, and it is exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the presentation goes, and I wish you could be here with me. It's just feeling great.
Oh, man.
Right?
I know that vibe. I'm getting jealous as I listen to it, Brent. Give me a little kind of, paint the scene for me. Give me a little bit of a mental picture.
A little context for you. So this building we were in was, as you might imagine, quite a historical building. It must have been an old factory or something that was just totally decked out. It was immense. Like, I got lost several times in this place. But it was set up as like a co-working space and an incubator space. So there were tons of these little businesses throughout all of the corridors, which was really fascinating to see. There was like artwork everywhere and you know, glass doors on these places. So I saw one, actually, you might like this, Chris. It was a 3D printing business. And in one of their huge, massive 3D printers, they had a rocket there. I thought you would probably enjoy that.
That's great.
Yeah, so the whole building had this like kind of tech happening energy to it. And I think that was a perfect place to host the event, where they really gave us a tour of all the new features. But I got to sit down, because I'm lucky, with Frank Karliczek, the CEO and founder of Nextcloud. And we got to discuss one-on-one the new features and why he feels they're important and some of the challenges with integrating the AI into this newest release of Nextcloud. Now, the main reason you've invited me here to Berlin for this week is the big announcement for this latest Nextcloud release. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, for you, what feels like the shining part of this release? I think I know what your answer will be, but maybe you have a different one.
I don't know. I mean, there are different perspectives. I mean, first of all, I think it's important to start with the mission, or what we want to do here in the first place, because that's what we're working towards. And the idea is, of course, that Nextcloud tries to be or is collaboration software similar to Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, with the key difference, of course, that it's like completely open source and you can host it and run it wherever you want. And you can really run it as on a Raspberry Pi for your family, for, 3 people. But you can also run it like for 100,000 or millions of users if you're a big government or a big organization. So that's what we do. And to be successful there, first of all, you need to have all the expected functionalities and features that the others have. And with this release, we really closed a lot of open holes we had for a long time. But of course, there's also a component where you really want to be innovative and look into the future. Because, at least for me, that's the fun part, is also like to innovate. It's not, just re-implementing something that, Google, Microsoft, Dropbox and so on does, and then, that's a bit boring. I also want to do something forward-looking and also in a good way. So in this release, as I said, we plugged a lot of open holes. For example, in Nextcloud Talk, this is our chat and video conferencing application. We have like call recording and breakout rooms and even a preview for our desktop client. These are all features that just our users expected and came to us and said, hey, we need this and this and this, and we plugged a lot of holes here. Very similar to in other areas, for example, in the groupware area, where we have this Exchange connector now, because in a lot of organizations they introduce Nextcloud, but they also still have some Microsoft tools
to fill those gaps.
Yeah, and you cannot really, even if you want to migrate from Microsoft to Nextcloud, you cannot really do this in one day. So you always have this parallel infrastructure, parallel situation. And for that, it was so requested a lot to be able to connect Nextcloud to an Exchange server, basically. And that's something we implemented for the feature request. And there are many more like areas in this area. But then, as I said, also the shiny new thing, it's important, and it comes to no surprise. Of course, that is the whole AI area where everybody's talking about. Everybody's showing nice features, nice functionalities. Like Google and Microsoft, they presented interesting features lately, the last few weeks. And that's something where we are also innovating. Of course, again, like following our values. So we actually integrated, because we sort of had to, ChatGPT and dall-e and all these services. And they're nice and powerful and integrated like in all applications or most applications. But for us, it's also important to have things that run locally, that are privacy aware, they're not discriminating. And we created this whole framework around ethical AI, where we basically are super transparent to our users, like which feature is basically does what. Because I don't know if a lot of people realize that if you use some translation system, as it's available in a lot of applications, that most of them or all of them sending their data to this other service, and then they have all the documents and all chat messages and all emails and everything. That's not good. So we implement, for example, a translation system that runs on device, which is purely open source on your server. Same as with dictation and same with document classification and other things. So we are doing innovative, interesting AI stuff, but following our values.
I would imagine when you first thought that artificial intelligence was something that you should integrate into Nextcloud, did you struggle with how to do that in a way that felt to still be following the values of the project and the business and the people working here?
I wouldn't say struggling, but I mean, it was a challenge. But and there was also a time when I thought it's not even possible. But then it became clear that there are options, that there are actually like nicely pre-trained machine learning models out there that are small enough that you can run them locally. And there were some first experiments in our community. For example, there was one developer who implemented like a face and object recognition using a freely available model running on device. And we hired him then. Nowadays,
Smart decision.
Yeah. Nowadays has a real team for AI topics now, and we're constantly trying to explore what we can do, where the boundaries are. Yeah.
And I'm glad they are looking at that. Because as I listen to this, I think I like this approach. You can just not use it if you don't want it, but you're also not getting left out because you're somebody who's self-hosting or somebody who's using free software. It's nice not to be left out.
They also shared with me that this AI measurement system that they're talking about, the ethical AI rating system, they mentioned that they thought of doing this in a collaborative way with other businesses and companies and decided to do it just for Nextcloud in-house for this particular reason. But I wonder if that'll come. And it sounds like a very interesting idea as well to me.
I think other folks are thinking along the same lines. I saw another business that was sort of discussing this. It kind of just seems like this is something we're going to sort out over the next year or so.
Well, right. I mean, the data matters. You have concerns that are really powerful, but you want to make sure you're making the right trade-offs.
Chris, you mentioned this smart picker that's kind of the launcher that allows you to have access to all these, many of these new features. And I got to chat with a few people who designed it, a few people who thought up the idea. And so Daphne gave me a little intro and how Smart Picker came to be.
Yeah, my name is Daphne. I am Manager Alliances, Ecosystem and Support for Nextcloud. Indeed, I do many different things, so a lot of variety in my day, and I get to know the entire organization very well. I'm very proud of the work that one of my team members developed, which is the Smart Picker. It's an element that is introduced. It was kind of a joke in the beginning because it started with me complaining that I wanted an implementation with Giphy to have funny cats to send to colleagues. And then it was Christmas and my colleague said, "Hello, Daphne, I have a present for you." And that's how it started. We decided to see if we could make it a more general component that could enable much more integrations and features. And then we realized quite quickly that we could use it to integrate anything from OpenStreetMap to several artificial intelligence features like ChatGPT. And we also figured out that it was not so hard to implement this component in many different Nextcloud apps. So you can now insert cat gifs not only in talk, but also in text, deck, notes, mail.
Everywhere.
And in collectives.
But that's lovely because it sounds like what was an internal joke and an ask, really, is like serving your own interests with how Nextcloud can evolve also helps everyone else. And it sounds like that led to all sorts of opportunities.
Exactly, and there's also a strategy behind it. It's not only joke, it's also how we work. So we encourage creativity, we encourage hacking, and we don't only encourage that from our community, but also from ourselves, and that's where this comes from. And then when we have a solution that is interesting, we want to make it available for everyone. So we did not only present all the wonderful implementations, but we also say to people, look, here's an easy tutorial, you can use this component on your own and create your own apps with it.
Smart Picker started out as a joke.
Right.
Can we write that down as that is the bombshell of this episode? Because I would predict, if this was our predictions episode, that this Smart Picker is going to become the definitive interface differentiator of Nextcloud.
This Giphy integration with it, it's a nice integration. It's really snappy. It just loads quick. It's pleasant to use. I'm into it. Watch out, rest of you Nextcloud users.
If you've never used a desktop launcher like ULauncher or there's lots. There's Albert. There's so many. It is so quick. And for Nextcloud to be building this into the Nextcloud UI, it is genius. It is going to be one of the key differentiators of all of the other collaboration suites. And so the idea, my prediction, it's basic now. It's version 1, maybe 0.5 really, but it is the primary way you get access to the new AI features in Nextcloud is through the Smart Picker. And the Smart Picker, I think, will evolve into a launcher that today I complain about the dashboard, but imagine when the first like Nextcloud page loads and I just hit slash and I can just start typing the very first couple of characters of what I need, maybe a file or it's a calendar. And then I hit enter with that smart picker and it takes me there. It's going to be as fast as you can get it on native desktop applications. That's where they're going. So the idea that it started as a joke and to get that nugget here on the show, ooh boy, that's fantastic. I love that, Brent.
Part of my favorite aspect of being here is just to get all these little stories that, you don't get from like a feature release note page. So another person I got to talk to who was fascinating was Nimisha, who works on the UI and UX design you were just raving about.
My name is Nimisha, and I work as a designer at Nextcloud, and I'm involved in, UI and UX design. So anything that you see as a part of the product, I have maybe worked on it. Hopefully I've worked on it.
That's great. Well, I already love you. Thank you.
She also revealed to me her favorite feature from this release that I think you'll find interesting.
Oh, I don't think it's kind of an obscure feature. I don't think it came up ever, but it's called the Smart Picker. Yeah, I think that's the most exciting feature because I think how it sort of came about was kind of funny because there was this. It was actually, it actually came out of a community discussion. Which I just remember that, and that's actually pretty cool. So I think someone raised an issue or something like that in the forum saying it would be really nice to have some way to link any different type of object or something, something along those lines. And we were like, okay, we can take this up in the weekly design review calls that we do. So that's a regular thing, and people from the community can get involved if they would like. So we did that, and things were quiet for a few weeks. And then there was this one pull request about reference any object in Nextcloud. And we were like, okay, that's pretty cool. And from there, it just snowballed into, we can link deck cards and GitHub issues and, YouTube and PeerTube and, like freaking tables. And then like towards the end, like the developer was like, we can do chat GPT and stuff. And I'm like, wait, what's happening? Like, that's so cool. Like, it's absurd, like how fast it snowballed into being something that can be used everywhere and is so useful. So I think that's the most exciting feature for me, for sure.
Me too. I agree. I think it really is. I think this is going to be one of the defining features of Nextcloud as it evolves over the next few releases. And it's already the way you get access to the coolest new features of Nextcloud. So the smart picker for the win.
Did you hear that little hint there, Chris? I heard PeerTube get mentioned. So you can also do these linking to PeerTube instances, which is pretty cool.
We talk about some of the new features in detail in Linux Action News. And one of the scenarios we talk about is essentially planning a meetup, which we do all the time.
Yes, we do.
Where you can pull in like a template to announce the meetup with ChatGPT while we're all talking about this in Nextcloud Talk. And then you can pull in, obviously, some artwork to supply the meetup page, then using Stable Diffusion. And then later on, you can pull in OpenStreetMaps to get the location so we're all in sync on where to meet up at. And then when you're all done, when you wanted to share the video of the event, you go back to the chat, and using the smart picker, you easily just invoke access to your PeerTube instance, and you pull in the link for the video of the event, and you add that to the chat. And it all just kind of works.
Do you remember a few months ago when we were asking for an alternative to meetup.com?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if they're making it for us here.
Eventually. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Nextcloud that I appreciate now more so than I think I did a year ago or less is that maybe even less, yeah. It is a platform that you can build stuff on. You build on top of it. And to have this extra
and
there's
just a lot of common features you can build off of and things you can, interact with. And there's just more and more.
One aspect I was really interested in was how they interact with the open source community. Because I know open source developers are a big part of the add-ons that get added to Nextcloud. So Nimisha had some insights about how a design team connects with an open source community that I thought was fascinating.
Formally, it's a two-person team, but there are a lot of other engineers who have a really good eye for design. So, I really consider them as part of the design team as well. Plus, so many members from the community also end up, raising so many really, really, really valid points and basically doing my job a lot of the time. So, yeah, it's really not just two people.
And so can you talk a little bit about applying those open source concepts to design work? Because it's not that common. So I'm curious how that's been going.
Yeah, that's actually how I got involved in Nextcloud in the first place. I have an engineering background, so I was interested in open source from there, and I started getting more and more interested in design over the last few years of university. And I was like, why isn't there an open source design presence? And I did a little digging on the internet, and I found Nextcloud, and I was like, oh, there is a designer, which is way more than enough for me. So I was like, hey, can I please get involved? And since then, I've been a part of Nextcloud. So I think the fact that Nextcloud is open source is kind of integral to how we work. It doesn't stay just within the team, the design decisions. It's always out in the open and it's super transparent. I think that really helps. Any design decisions that we make are published as issues or PRs or whatever, and people who from the community who have anything to comment on it can comment, or a lot of times there are members in the community who raise issues themselves. So I love this aspect of working collaboratively with the community, and I think that's only possible in an open source organization. So I mean, this is my first design job, so I don't know how it works in a closed source organization, but I really love how it works over here, so I got lucky there.
I love that you captured her thoughts as a new contributor to an open source organization doing design. She said, and they're doing design in an open source organization. A totally different thing, but she's really embracing it.
Yeah, that was such a wild concept to me when I first met her, because it was like those two. I mean, as a photographer, that's part of the reason I got interested in open source. I wanted to fight the Adobes so much, was that so often those tools, design and open source, are just so far from each other. And to learn that they were doing it collaboratively and openly, I was just endlessly fascinated. So we had tons of discussions that I didn't get a chance to record. But that whole concept just kind of blew my mind. It really. I also got to ask Daphne about the developer program, because we're touching on developer topics here a little bit. And I thought, well, why not dive in a little bit? On stage, you were discussing the developer program and how there are some new features for the developers specifically. Can you go into that a little?
Of course, our community is super important for Nextcloud. It is one of the main ways in which we can provide super useful software comparable to big tech. So we wanted to invest more in our developer program. We announced this for the 25 release. And now with the 26 release, I had the honor to explain what we did. So we asked for feedback on our forums, and we got several pieces of feedback back that we could easily implement.
Would you be willing to go into one or two of those pieces of feedback that were most impactful for you or surprising?
For example, one of the mentioned pieces of feedback was that we had a lack of easy-to-follow tutorials. Maybe you have had a similar experience as me, but many of the tutorials are either poorly written or they miss important steps because they assume that you know, but you don't. We had a similar problem. Our tutorial was not only not working anymore, it was dated, but it also assumed pre-knowledge that people did not have. So we improved the tutorials by making a series of 5 tutorials that guide people from setting up their development environment through creating simple Hello World type of apps. And then when people understand how such an app is structured, we challenge them to develop something that would be App Store ready.
Lovely. And so it sounds like you're now helping guide developers through the Nextcloud ecosystem to become perhaps long-term developers for creating all sorts of technologies in the application ecosystem. And I would imagine that's a good feeling.
Yeah, that's an amazing feeling because that's of course exactly what we need. We don't only need extra apps in the App Store, but we also need people to contribute to the core of Nextcloud and to help with fixing bugs or implementing new features.
It was mentioned during the presentation that around 2,000 developers helped work on some of these new features that were announced. That must be exciting for you and for the team to have that many people collaborating together.
Of course, it's exciting, and it's also, to be honest, sometimes overwhelming. Because, you can imagine that those people are not equally spread all across the project. So in some repositories, like the server repository, we have more pull requests than we can possibly keep up with, which is perhaps a luxury problem, but it makes people feel guilty for not approving the PRs fast enough, for example. And other repositories, like the text repository, don't have a lot of community engagement.
And so what would you say to try to attract someone there? Maybe one of our listeners might be interested. How do you think they can contribute to that repository specifically?
For the text repository, we developed insanely detailed and good first issues. So you can really find good first issues that suit for your level. Some only require one line change. Others will teach you more about how the code base is structured. We also provide mentorship in those repositories. So if you want to start on it and you have a question, then we can get on a call with you. And also the technology of the text repository is interesting to work on and developed by very good people.
Brent, I think what you've managed to do, which is something that I have wanted to accomplish for years, and you've finally done it, is you've really told the human side of the Nextcloud project here. I think Nextcloud as a project has focused so often on the features and the benefits of the project, and they've really kind of tried to speak to that to be, considered alongside the large enterprise competitor like Office from Microsoft or Google. And so they don't really talk about the human side of it. But what I like about what we've just gone through here is you really did touch on that. I really feel connected with the human side of the Nextcloud story. And that's always the aspect that has fascinated me about this super quintessential and super important free software project.
It's one thing I learned the very moment that I even showed up to the offices here. Well, actually, it started even before then. Marius came and picked me up from the airport. I got a ride from the airport to the office here, which was amazing. And as soon as I arrived, just everyone was excited to meet me, and I as excited to meet them as well. And all of the conversations just started happening. It was sort of very similar to our meetups where you just have so much to connect with, so many shared ideals and exciting technologies that you're looking forward to. And it was just a real connective human experience here this entire week. And I'm glad that came through because it's been like the most overwhelmingly lovely part of this entire experience while I've been here in Berlin.
Bitwarden.com/Linux. Go right now to get started with a free trial for an individual or for a team. It's bitwarden.com/Linux. It is the easiest way for yourself, a business, or a group to store, share, and sync sensitive data. They have tooling to manage all of it. It's fully customizable, and the best part, in my opinion, it's open source. And Bitwarden's vaults, they're end-to-end encrypted with zero-knowledge encryption. So even if that information were to leak out, there's nothing anybody can do with it, and Bitwarden is constantly iterating on their security, making it better. They're not standing still. If you're on a different password manager, I understand what it's like. You got it all set up. You got it on your devices, and it's just working for you. They got security problems. They're not as good as Bitwarden because they're not Bitwarden. But who wants to migrate, right? It's a big hassle. Well, I did it a couple of years ago, and I wish I would have done it sooner. Wes did it before me, and he was right. Bitwarden.com/migrate. They make it so simple. Do me a favor and go to /Linux first. But when you go to /migrate, they make it so straightforward. I felt silly for not doing it sooner. It's just now a no-brainer. And now I use it to manage my passwords, my secrets, my recovery codes, two-factor tokens, all in one place. And Bitwarden keeps on adding great features. They've really improved on their username auto-generator, and they've included now an email generator, so you can have a unique email, a unique username, and a unique password for every site, service, and app you use. Now, that's the low-hanging fruit that's actually accessible when you use Bitwarden. They can actually make a significant improvement with your online security. And this is true for yourself. This is true for your friends, your family, your workplace. they probably all need to go to bitwarden.com/Linux. And you might just be the tech person in their life that often gives them those kinds of recommendation. And Bitwarden makes it really easy to switch between like your work stuff and your personal stuff, or your project stuff and your personal stuff. And of course, it works across all your devices, including they have a desktop Linux app, and they're always improving the software too. They've really made it simpler to get signed in. They added fantastic improvements for enterprises. Always new things coming in Bitwarden. So it just keeps on paying to be a Bitwarden customer. It's an incredible deal. You can try it for free right now when you go to bitwarden.com/Linux. And of course, if you're a business, I highly recommend that you have something like this in place. Probably one of my number one recommendations, really. I'd be shocked if I came into a place that wasn't using something like Bitwarden. Please don't let it be spreadsheets. Please don't let it be sticky notes under keyboards. Please send everybody to bitwarden.com/Linux and tell them they can migrate too. If they have something but it's not good enough, bitwarden.com/migrate. It's the best tooling out there to do this. That's why we recommend it. I'm so grateful that it's open source. It's trusted by our community, and we use it for years now. And just keep on spreading the love. So go try it, sign up, support the show. It all starts at bitwarden.com/Linux. That's bitwarden.com/Linux.
Well, as you might imagine, when you throw a Brent in Berlin, there's all sorts of content. So I got a chance to sit down for like a brunch with Brent style conversation with both Frank and Jos. That'll come out in a few weeks. We will certainly tease that more. You can go to brunch.show to check out some previous ones if you haven't seen those yet. Also, we might just release some full-length interviews in the extras feed in maybe a week or two. So check out there, extras.show. And I also wanted to thank a bunch of folks who were just super kind to me. And I can't thank everyone. I met a ton of great people here. But I would say, Frank and Jos, thank you so much for inviting us to hang out here, basically in the office, even after hours, on the weekends, everything. Handing me your keys to the office, which is such a great thing. So thank you. Maria and Daphne were also so sweet to me and made sure I had everything I needed, and of course provided tons of amazing conversations. The entire team at Nextcloud who was here, we just had so much fun. They make me just not want to leave, really. But a huge thanks to Marius, who really made all this possible. He provided us with extra gear. I'm using tons of his gear here now. He's not even in town anymore. He needs to have this gear shipped to him. That's how dedicated he was to helping us out.
Wow.
Just amazing. And like providing hotels and all that stuff. So I just, huge thank you to everyone at Nextcloud and to everyone at JB who showed up for the meetup. We'll chat a little bit more about that in office hours this week. So stay tuned to catch some audio from that and probably some stories too.
And now it is time for Le Boost.
So before we get to all of the boosts, if you send in a boost about Giraffing OS, obviously, we didn't talk about Giraffing OS this week, but we're going to talk about it next week. I saved all of the boosts about that to next week. And so you have more time to send one in. If you're thinking or have switched to Giraffing OS, send it in and we'll talk about it next week. We're collecting them all up, your questions, your experience, etc.
It's a big old boost bucket.
Maybe, or maybe not. It depends on the audience. That's how this entire segment functions. Speaking of which, Sir Sean of the
Algenie, that's the best I got.
Valley, boosts in with 100.
I wanted to hear how you were going to...
All right, okay, all right, you got me. In respect of Sir Sean, I'll give it a shot. Of the Allegheny Valley. Is that close?
I mean, I say vote for it. It's great.
All right. 150,650 sats. Yes, sir.
Hey, Rich Lobster!
Keep up the Linuxy nerdness and drop the least significant digit for the zip code to get the location. So you got to drop, I think, the 0 there to get 150650. Oh, nope. Drop the 0, Chris. Drop the 0. He just said it. You know, I really love this. The zip code boost is one of my favorite things recently because if you can imagine somebody who's been doing this for nearly 16 years, you get to a point where you really want to start kind of actualizing the listeners, right? Because what's your motivation after 16 years of doing this? And understanding where people are and putting names to locations,
Makes us feel just that much closer.
It
right?
does.
It's really nice.
It connects us to the audience in a way that is really validating and also kind of fulfilling and kind of, I don't know, actualizing is the only word I can think of. You go from this kind of nebulous number to a real person who lives in an area where they've got Planet Fitnesses and they've got Walmarts.
Yeah, like we know you're out there, but now we know you're out there.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing about the boost segment, I have to tell you.
Okay, we were missing an E. I think that's Allegheny or something closer to that.
Thank you. So there is no Planet Fitness there then. That's a bummer because if you're a hashtag van lifer, it's great for showers. Oh, no?
Turn.
Yeah, you're right. All right.
Boost onward.
Yes, thank you. And moving right along, Sir Lurks a Lot comes in with 97,630 sats.
I hoard that which your kind covets.
He says, happy belated 500. Well, thank you, Lurks. I appreciate that. He says, I think TechSnap was the first JB show I found maybe 7 or 8 years ago with Chris and Ellen.
It was a great time to enter a JB, really.
Yeah, man. We talked about Bitcoin back in the very early days. So that was really something, and Dropbox and all these kinds of just different security issues. He then goes on to say, Lurkslot goes on to say, I quickly found Lass. Noah never fixed his, what is that? What is a triptych?
3 of something.
I don't know. But I have invited Noah to join us at Linux Fest Northwest. So let's ask him. Somebody make a note. He says, good shows have come and gone. And Ange has come and gone. Hey, Ange was at the recent meetup. She's still out there.
Indeed.
She's still listening. Says, I've been lurking a long time. I've loved all the great JB content. Thanks so much. It's better than Star Trek?
Whoa.
I can't take that. He says, by the way, this was a follow-up Leap boost. By the way, my boost amount was my zip code. Did you look it up there, Wes Payne?
Computing. Lake County, Oregon.
What? Lurks a Lot. I'm sorry. Did we meet? I hope so. I hope we got to meet. Lurks a Lot. Lurks, we need to talk. Follow up, Lurks. If we did a meetup, say at the end of April in Olympia, would you make it? Would you make it, Lurks? Because we're thinking about it. Let us know. Marcel comes in with 74,656 sats. I had a great time at the Berlin meetup. I'm boosting some sats back to say thanks for organizing the meetup and for all the stickers. It was great to meet some other listeners and, of course, to meet Brent. Thanks to Nextcloud for hosting as well. So I like that Brent came in second there. You noticed that?
I know my place.
You must have been busy. No, that's the sign that there was enough people at the meetup that you must have been circling around and doing the thing that we inevitably do, which is we try to talk to everybody. And it means we don't spend time with any one particular
You know
person.
how it is. But actually, what was brilliant about this meetup, Chris, that I think was a little unique is that here at the office, they've got this massive table with a bunch of benches around it. And so at most points, actually, it was just all of us sitting in on the same discussion and getting like 7 different perspectives all at the same time. It was brilliant. And I didn't plan that. I just used whatever was here. But man, these listeners, they know how to meet.
That is really cool. Wow. You should have filmed that. Marcel also came in this week with 86,167 sats.
Hey, rich lobster.
Marcel writes, I'm not sure if the international postal or zip codes really work. I remember hearing sometime before that when Chris looked one up, it was still in the US and it was somewhere in the States. But I'm curious, can you find me based on this boost? Canadian codes also don't work because they have letters and are 6 digits, which is, to be honest, a lot of sats.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
I understand, Marcel. I understand. He goes on to write, it's not because the rest of the world is afraid of sats. Anyways, looking forward to meeting Brent and the other listeners tomorrow. Oh, we should have reversed these boosts looking back at it.
Yeah, that would have maybe made sense. It's fine.
Marcel, it is great to hear you. You know what? A meetup report via a boost might be my favorite thing ever. That's great.
So is Marcel live in Germany? I see there's a German postal code, Augsburg, but I don't know if that's right.
Maybe Brent knows.
Well, Brent on the scene. Beep, 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 beep. It turns out that Marcel traveled the furthest. Well, other than me. We'll just scratch me for now. Traveled the furthest.
You don't count.
To get to the Berlin meetup. They do live in, well, Germany at least, but a 5-hour train ride away. So
wow, okay.
I think you did get it right, but they're also Canadian. So was wearing a Waterloo, University of Waterloo shirt on. And I was like, hey, team.
2 Canadians in Berlin. How about that? Marcel, that's so perfect. Thank you for taking the time to travel that far. It really matters to us. These booths are like as close as it gets, and the only thing better is in-person meetups. Do you know what I mean? Right? It's like the booth is the closest thing we have from a technology standpoint to really have that connection with you. But when you boost and you meet us in person, I can't even imagine. I mean,
and then it makes all the future boosts like that much better.
Yes.
You've got that image now.
But also, I mean, you guys know the numbers we're dealing with here. You guys know what we're talking about. We're talking about 0.9% of the audience that ever gets to do this. I mean, it is remarkable. And even when it comes to boosts, we're talking about a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the audience that gets to actually boost in and does actually boost in. And it's
our boost buddies.
It's incredible. And we really appreciate it. And, these meetups and these boosts, they sustain us in a way, when we're rounding 16 years that nothing else would. Not a dollar amount, not a download figure. It's really awesome.
Duke Silver boosts in with 50,000 sets.
Hey, rich lobster!
And this here is a thank you boost because Duke Silver writes, I wanted to boost to thank CG bass player for all the assistance and training on contributing to JB's GitHub. And yeah, just mad props to CG for being a wonderful ambassador and caretaker over at our website repo.
Yeah. And both Duke and CG are also fantastic members of our Matrix community. I saw Duke and other members in the Matrix community celebrating this boost when it went through.
Yeah, I have to third that one. CG bass player has really taken the reins since I've been busy, I guess, in the last few weeks traveling all over the place. And so I just want to say massive thank you. I saw tons of messages in our website Matrix room, and it was always CG bass player trying to help someone out. So huge thank you.
Thank you, CG. It takes just a few members of the community who step up that make something better for thousands of listeners. Really appreciate it.
You know what, Chris? I think I'm going to promote CG bass player in our GitHub.
Yeah.
I think we're going to.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm going to give him extra privileges. He's been such an awesome member.
It so shall be deemed in episode 503 of the Unplugged program. CG gets an upgrade.
No going back now. Lucas Burlingham boosts in with 28,310 Satoshis.
Coming in hot with the boost!
Been listening since around episode 300 and love the show. Just wanted to get in on the whole zip code thing and show my appreciation. Can't wait to see where y'all are in another 500 episodes.
Thank you, Lucas.
Isn't that sweet?
Did you already look it up, Wes?
Doing it now.
I'm surprised. I thought, a lot of times I see you over there. I think,
do. Yeah,
you preload them,
He's been paying attention. It's odd.
I know.
Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Awesome.
I have a sense that North Carolina is hot right now. I've traveled the world. Well, that's not true, but I've definitely traveled, the country.
That's a part of the world.
They feel hot.
Yarg 32 comes in with
more of a Yarg 64 kind of guy.
Yeah. I don't really think there's very many Yarg 32 anymore, but I guess if you want to spend your time on it.
They came in with 16,384 Satoshis. Here's a bump for the post 500 slump. I got these sats by trading CureCoin that I was rewarded by doing.
What?
Folding at home, of course.
Okay.
And of course, I did it on Linux. Cheers from NorCal Bay Area, and keep up the good work.
Well, let's look up CureCoin. Okay, so CureCoin is currently worth a penny. Ooh, that's rough, man.
That's more than Chris Coin.
Yeah, would it though? Actually, if I launched ChrisCoin, it'd be based on Satoshis. So, I mean, look at this. It got up to 30 cents. It got up to 30 cents.
It's a protein research-based proof of work.
Is it now?
Yeah. Your computer does the research, you get the coins.
Yeah. Is it
Start folding now.
Is it an ERC20 token?
Let's find out how it works.
So there's this, for those who don't care about crypto, there's this thing called Ethereum, and they have this thing called an ERC20 token, which you can probably already guess by my whole tone here. It lets you just spin up your own random crap coin just on the Ethereum network, and you can just make a coin. And so many of the bogus crypto coins that are out there are just basic, simple ERC20 tokens that like people like copy a GitHub repo. They like fork a GitHub repo. They like rename it and they just spin it up on Ethereum. So I don't know if CureCoin is one of those.
It's not. Apparently it's been around since like 2014.
Okay. So it's definitely legit then. Too bad it's only at 11 cents right now. If you look at the price chart, it doesn't look like it's doing so good. It's not great. I say good move on the boosters part. Sell that SOP into sats. I think that was the way to go, Yarg. I think you made a good move.
I thought it was Yarg.
Yarg.
Yeah, come on.
32.
Yarg. Yarg.
Dark Year Elite boosts in with 5,240 sats.
Boost!
Just wanted to boost in since it's a long time ago. To make this thing exciting, this is my zip code. Or more precisely, it is in my language translated to English, either postcode or post number. What country and what city do I live in? Best to you all. Enjoy listening every day to many podcasts from JB and to 2.5 admins.
5240. All right. When I search for 5240 on Google Maps, I get a pizza place.
I'm getting Denmark?
What?
I'm guessing Denmark.
How did I get a pizza place?
In Denmark.
I think you might just be hungry.
Yeah, that could be. It does know me, Google knows me. All right, so Denmark, let us know if we got it right.
Yeah, thank you, Dark Year.
Yeah, appreciate
if we're
the boost.
saying that right. All right, well, Woodcarver boosted in with 20,500 sats. My Nextcloud install has been running for 6 years and has gradually replaced more and more cloud services while teaching me systems administration in a friendly way. Truly a remarkable open source project.
Wow, Woodcarver, that is fantastic to hear. 6 years of uptime is serious.
Doing better than Chris? No, wait.
Whoa. Whoa.
Shade thrown.
I had a couple of days where my SQLite installation goes sideways. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the Graphene OS update, which is coming up. But what I have really enjoyed about having Nextcloud deployed is it's created like this this base system. That
Collaboration hub?
No. Actually, don't use it for any of that.
Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe one day. But it has created this platform which I can tie a whole bunch of different stuff to, like over WebDAV or over APIs via apps that can sync and do different stuff. And like that is really useful, like map location and phone tracking and contact information and email and calendar. Having all of that sync through a system that is kind of like just the perfect version for me, because I get a little bit of web view stuff if I want it. I can sync it to clients, and there's lots of nice mobile apps like for the cookbook stuff. That has been really nice. So for me, Nextcloud has kind of been like this platform, I describe it, of which I have built a lot of self-hosted other infrastructure on top of. So I'm glad to hear it's worked really well for you, Woodcarver.
Chris, how many Nextcloud servers do you have access to right now, like concurrently?
You bastard.
I think it's at least.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. It's a fun little game, isn't it?
You make me sound like a maniac, Like
No. Just proficient. Maybe.
Well,
maybe not.
On the daily 3, but if I think about it, probably more than that. But
Tuxies, right?
4. Okay, there's the 4. Okay, 4. There's 4. But I don't really use Tuxies on the daily, but we do have a 4th deployment. We have one on-premise here at the studio. We have one up in the cloud, which we all use as a team to share like resources for editing and clips and all that kind of stuff. And then I personally have one that I use with the wife, and I sync because I don't know if you guys know this, I'm an Android user now. I sync all my Android phones.
I saw your bumper sticker when I got here.
Yeah,
today.
I use Android, and I'm an iOS convert, and I replaced the cloud with Nextcloud. I'm trying to just make sure I hit all the key points. Yeah, but I still feel like a Nextcloud noob. I have to be honest with you. I really do. This is the way it goes.
Anonymous boosts in with 18,438 cents.
There's coffee in that nebula.
The one time I'm on vacation, there's a meetup in my hometown.
Whoa.
I can't believe it. Have fun in Berlin, Brent. Greetings from South Africa.
Yeah, so Anonymous...
They just missed you.
That's Brent's fault, and I would probably completely and entirely blame Brent for that. And if you meant to have a username on there and you want to boost in and let us know who you are, let us know. But if you forgot or it didn't work out, that's probably also Brent's fault. So that's something we're working out. Scientifically, we think we can prove that.
Yeah, multiple realities and such. I will say, I'm sure this isn't the only one we're going to get. I will say in the future, sorry to everyone who is just hearing this episode and the previous one and is like, Brent's in Berlin, but it's already happened and you've totally missed me. It would have been great to meet you, but next time. We'll get you next time.
Yeah, that'll happen real soon, so don't worry about it. Opie 1984 comes in with 4,000 sats. And before we get into this, guys, you ever feel like sometimes you're just along for the ride and you realize the audience has their own little joke that they're sharing with themselves? Well, Opie shines a light on that and just says, I just wanted to let that the booster known as Internet Explorer, I got your joke. Though it would have been funnier if you had waited a few more episodes. What are they talking about? What are they talking about? You have any idea? You don't, do you?
Something about the episode number?
Something. Also, what did I unleash on Chris? I feel like I'm Dr. Frankenstein. I've created a monster and I've lost control of it. He's referring, of course, to the fact that he's the one that started the Enterprise boost. And 4,000 sats ain't even close. Not even sneezing distance to get me to play that boost. So I don't mind it if somebody boosts in the amount, but
what amount did we set?
I don't know. They got to tell me. It's a lot, though. I know I'm going to know it's the right amount because I'm going to be like, holy shit, somebody actually spent that amount. Well, we're going to be on the top charts for a bit.
Lol Palm boosts in with 3,006 sats. Chris might want to check out Lightstream.io to continuously replicate a SQLite database instead of switching away from SQLite.
I was actually thinking about switching away from SQLite after the show. And I actually already have a MariaDB instance running on my Odroid, but I have not moved Nextcloud over yet. And then this boost comes in and it just upsets the whole thing.
Lightstream is the standalone disaster recovery tool for SQLite. It runs as a background process and safely replicates changes incrementally to another file or to S3.
That does sound nice.
Lolpalm kept boosting in. They also have a page on alternatives, lightstream.io/alternatives. That was another 1,002 sats and another 1,003. I'm setting up Nextcloud for it myself, and I might just do SQLite with some backup strategy. It's so simple.
It is simple, but I'm not sure what other advantage it has. It doesn't seem to have the performance advantage. What I have learned, and I talked about this in self-hosted recently, is it seems perhaps the upstream developers are not developing with SQLite in mind 100% of the time. I say this diplomatically and with much love and respect, but I had an issue during my last Nextcloud update where my SQLite database broke and we had to run a SQLite repair. And when you trace the issue, it seems that perhaps there was a comment or something added to the database that SQLite just simply doesn't support. And Upstream wasn't really checking for that because they just kind of tell you not to use SQLite in a whole bunch of different ways. And so they just kind of published the first update, assuming everybody wasn't on SQLite or they just never checked for it. And they will check for it in the future, but it made me realize that the Nextcloud developers themselves aren't using SQLite. And if you want to use it in production, you probably want to use it as close to what the actual developers are targeting as possible. And I think MariaDB is probably it. Although I love this Lightstream.io. It looks really nice. And if you do have to use SQLite, it seems like a pretty solid way to use it safely. But if you're going to use Nextcloud in a serious production environment, I think I have to recommend you use something besides SQLite, even with Lightstream.io.
Like Postgres.
Yeah, or Postgres, right? Postgres seems really nice and solid.
That was just me trying to rib you for not using it.
MariahDB's no good to you? What? MariahDB's no good? No, it's fine. It's fine. It's good. I'll just turn it down. I'll turn off it's just a container. It's fine. The Golden Dragon comes in with a row of ducks. It's disheartening to hear that Docker is doing this to open source projects, but I suppose they have to make money somehow. Well, we have a little update.
Indeed, we do.
Golden Dragon, worry no more. Docker has kind of just about faced on everything, haven't they?
We're reversing course, they write.
Yeah. And so I think they're just going to maybe take the lesson on this one, if you will. It's hard not to come out and just say, well, you could have avoided the whole thing, right? But they could have avoided the whole thing at this point. And I feel like the damage is done. However, it is really great to see that they won't be putting the hammer down on open source projects that so many of us depend. But I think what Golden Dragon was relaying, and I agree with, is this is a warning shot. And perhaps we take this as our opportunity to move on before it is absolutely dire. 412 Linux comes in with 4,096 sats. Greetings, gentlemen. I wanted to boost in because episode 502 was a banger. Thank you. Thank you for boosting in when you think we have a good episode.
Love that.
That is really appreciated in the value for value model. He says, I really enjoyed the deep dive into the topic. I didn't feel like the boost overshadowed the main topic. That's always something we're looking at too, 412. We also chapter marker everything, but when we incorporate the boost, we end up talking about stuff we never expected. So for us, it's sometimes the most fun we get to have during the episode is just sort of this surprise. We're going to talk about this moment. So sometimes the boosts do go on for a bit, but it's just because we're really enjoying them. He writes, I appreciate the overview in LAN, followed up with a deeper dive in Linux Unplugged. Keep up the good work. Also, welcome to all the new listeners. Do yourself a favor and become a member. The member feed is awesome. Oh,
Aw, 412.
412. And then I wanted to pull forward Pengu's boost. We have a 2,000 sat limit to get on the show, but I wanted to pull this one forward because we read them all. And Pengu 98 boosted in with some baby ducks. Awesome show, guys. Keep it coming. It's insanely technical. That's when I love it. I love the Nix challenge. Now, I take that boost seriously. I think we do our best when we go really technical, and I'd like to know the audience's opinion on this. Because as podcasters and content creators, we're always debating, should we be creating content for newbies and people who don't quite understand this, or should we go as deep as we possibly can and just assume people will fill it in? Is there something in between? That's always something we'd like your opinion on. linuxunplugged.com/contact. And of course, I'd like your take in the boost. But Pingu likes it. He says, when it's technical, I love it. I love the Nix challenge. I've been trying to install Nix on my Pine Rock Pro 64 for a while now. Booting ARM is always a challenge. Maybe one day I'll get it working. Get an Odroid, Pingu. The Odroid.
You are just such a changed man.
I know. I mean, I had so many pies, and I was just thinking this. I'm not even S-ing you. The other day, Friday, I updated all of my stuff on my Odroid. Like, I updated Nix. I updated all the containers. I got all the different apps.
Update day.
Mm-hmm. It was, Home Assistant got done on the Home Assistant Yellow. Just checked all the boxes. It felt so good, Wes. And when I was done with it all, the thing that I really appreciated is the Odroid is so much faster at that stuff. All that kind of like right into the file system, reboot, come back up. Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi 5 needs to have a totally new disk I/O, or I'm not even looking back. Odroid all the way. If you'd like to send a boost into the show, there's a couple of different paths. My friend, you're standing at a fork in the road. You can take the path of the new podcasting standards, transcripts, chapters, and much, much more like boosts. And you can get a whole new podcasting app at newpodcastapps.com. Things like Podverse, which are GPL, cross-platform, web, Android, iOS, or Fountain, which streams you sats while you listen, and of course, Castmatic on iOS, and many more. A brand new journey awaits at newpodcastapps.com. But, young Padawan, if you're not quite ready, I understand. Perhaps you love your damn podcast app. I do get it. You can boost into the show without switching podcast apps. Just go to getalby.com, get Alby. That lets you send boosts on the web. Top that off either with the built-in MoonPay system or, I don't know, maybe our long timer, you got some sats. And then head over to the podcast index. We got it linked in the show notes, but you can look for Linux Unplugged on the podcast index and send a boost into the show via their website. Once you have Alby topped off, you go over there. There's just like an embedded thing to boost right there. No podcast app switcheroo required. So nice. I love it. And Alby is good software with a good team, great open source at getalby.com. I'm going to make that my pick this week. Getalby.com and go check it out. That's a great software.
I'm using it.
I'm biased. I talked to the team and they really impressed me. And then I went and installed it and I've been playing around with it. And I've watched them when we started doing Boost. There was no Alby. And then like 3-4 months into us doing Boost on the show, this thing called Alby came along. And now, a year into us taking Boost on the show, I'm like, you got to get this thing called Alby. It's a total game changer. And it really is fantastic to see it go. And, it's free software. They're implementing new standards. There's so many cool things going on right now.
I mean, it just makes it such a nice little onboarding, sort of try things out, get your feet wet, play.
Yeah. A friend of mine, I won't say their name, but a friend of mine recently said, there's just nothing going on, like nothing really being developed. Everything's just kind of in hibernation right now. And I said, well, then you're not paying attention to Alby and the Lightning ecosystem because it is blowing up right now. Getalby.com. Also, our friends over at Podverse, which is a GPL podcasting 2.0 app that I think is fantastic. They're looking for some sharp Android developers to help contribute to their community, help them get a good Kotlin development environment going and help them understand and wrap their heads around that because, they focus a lot on iOS because they're iOS developers, but they really want to make the Android app great. So the Podverse team is looking for a little bit of help. And if you're a little Kotlin familiar, maybe go talk to them. We'll put a link to the Podverse GitHub page in the show notes too. And of course, links to everything we talked about today. Those are over at linuxunplugged.com/503. Well, Brentley, I guess we don't really know if you're going to end up spending another week in Berlin. You may be in Berlin for the next episode, or you may be home. We don't know at this point.
Well, one of the factors is there's a transportation strike here starting tomorrow, which is, of course, exactly the day I'm supposed to be leaving. So we're going to find out next week.
And I think it's an office hours week too.
Oh,
so
right.
Which means we got to figure out, maybe you'll be in Berlin for Tuesday's show. Maybe you won't.
If you do have to change your flight, maybe just change it to Seattle.
Oh, Wes, don't tempt me like that.
That might be easier. You know what? Because SeaTac is a nice big international airport. Could just make things smoother, Brent. There's a couch here with your name on it.
Alex did already tempt me. He beat you to it.
He did tell me that. Of course. He did. And I understand it's a shorter flight too. But Alex doesn't have Levi.
Yeah, that is very true. That's very true.
I know.
Hey, don't throw shade on Archie.
Archie's great. But you don't see Archie on a t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? All right, we'll be live next week. Brent may be home. He may be in North Carolina. He may be in Berlin. But we will be live over at Jupiter.tube Sunday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern.
See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station.
And of course, if you want more show, go to linuxactionnews.com. We break down some of the core features of Nextcloud Hub 4 and a lot more going on in the world of Linux and open source. And that's probably the best way to get more Wes Payne directly in your earballs. linuxactionnews.com. And of course, what else? What else do we have to mention at this point? The Mumble Room? Let's talk about the Mumble Room. Mumble Room's great. That's great. JupiterBroadcasting.com/mumble. And Matrix. JupiterBroadcasting.com/Matrix. I don't know. It's a website. There's stuff over there. Do I have to explain it all every time? Feels exhausting. I think you get it.
That is kind of your job.
All right. Well, see you back here next Sunday.